This is Think Smart with TMFG. I'm Carlo Cansino, and with me is Mike Connon, Senior Financial Advisor with the McClellan Financial Group of Asante Capital Management. Mike, what's going on today?
It's been a pretty busy week, but things are going well.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. Any interesting anecdotes from your meetings this week?
It's been a lot of clients have just questions about retirement.
Sure.
People are concerned about where their money's going to come from, how much money they're going to get. How is it indexed with inflation? How does the government rules work around this?
Yeah.
And taxation. How am I going to be taxed once I retire? So there's a lot of concerns we have.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I have a client who I met with this past week, and they had the same concerns. We've gone through their financial plan. They were well prepared to retire in 2026, and yet in this meeting today, because of all the uncertainty in the world, they were talking about delaying their retirement.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so they had a bunch of questions that we had to walk through in those meetings.
What were some of the questions?
Well, one of them was, how much retirement income will I have? So what are the things
Were they lucky enough to be a teacher?
Yeah, well, that would be great.
Not.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess it's funny because we've seen that disappearing, right? The pension plans of old, a long time ago when most retirees, you would have some type of pension plan.
For sure.
And that would cover a big piece of their retirement. But as we've seen those disappear over the years, and number one, the pension plans have been disappearing, and the indexed pension plans have become, even amongst, as we joke about teachers don't even have full index anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
And some government benefits do, but that's about all that's left with the indexing. So it's rare and hard to find nowadays.
Yeah, and having a defined benefit plan is almost the gold standard now to have as retirement income, but they are going by the wayside. You still have the main public plans like OMERS and HOOP and teachers, as you said, federal government or provincial government pension plans, but those are the gold standard, and public companies aren't necessarily providing defined benefit plans for their employees any longer.
And there's also a value in indexing that I don't think people realize until you actually do the numbers on it. You look at it over a 20, 30-year period, it's going to make 2 to 3 times the amount of money that you're going to have on these. Indexing's in the last, let's say, 5 years, we've had some tremendous inflation rates happen. And luckily, the government benefits have adjusted around that. And people's expenses go up, and you need that to adjust. And if you have a non-indexed pension, it's just going to disappear and dissipate over time.
Oh yeah, the amount of things that you can buy going forward are going to shrink.
Yep.
You're going to end up being a little bit skinnier in retirement.
You're going to eat a little bit less every day.
Yeah, exactly. But without the defined benefit plans, there are still some pensions that you can rely on, like Canada Pension Plan, Old Age Security, just to start.
Yeah. And they're reasonably good. I mean, Canada Pension Plan is okay. When I look at clients that have foreign pension plans, it's not great. I have clients that have worked in the U.S. and have their Social Security. It's much better than the Canada Pension Plan. I have clients in Europe. It's insanely better than the Canada Pension Plan. Right. I must say Canada Pension Plan is probably one of the worst I've seen out of all the people in the world. But it's there. And luckily, there's a bit of a supplement there with the Old Age Security, which helps out people when they hit 65.
Definitely. So you've got your pension plan, if you're lucky enough to have with work, CPP and Old Age Security. But then if you don't have the defined benefit plan with work, you're on your own to try to create your own plan. So that's either through personal savings, utilizing all the different types of accounts that Canada allows, RRSPs, TFSA.
Yeah. Are there things you can do to get paid more out of Canada Pension Plan?
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
So with Canada Pension Plan, I think most know that you can defer.
Yeah.
Or you could take early. So, obviously, normal retirement age for Canada Pension Plan would be age 65.
Yep.
But there are options to take early as age 60, or take as late as age 70. The earlier you take it, there's going to be a reduction.
Yep.
And that turns out to be 0.6% per month before your 65th birthday. And that, if you took it at 60, that's going to be a 36% reduction. But as you were talking about, how do you make that grow? You defer to age 70, and that's actually 0.7% increase per month, which actually is 42% if you delay to age 70. So that's a huge premium, 42%
it's a big
more.
Change, yeah. Your goal is just live long enough to enjoy it.
Yeah, right? No, exactly. Exactly.
OAS, does that have a similar type of thing?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, you can't take old age security earlier than 65, but you do have the opportunity to delay. And if you delay to age 70, it's not as much of a premium as CPP. It's only 0.6, but still, if you don't need those funds, you can delay and end up with 36% more old age security.
We often tell clients too when they're taking CPP, there is the ability to share it with your spouse.
Yep.
So they can put the two together and split in half, which sometimes can help you with income brackets. One spouse is retiring with a higher income, it can even out that retirement income.
Yeah, I think that's important to note. If you're trying to keep more money in your pocket, you want to reduce that household tax bill, and sharing your CPP benefits is one way to do it. What's another question do you think that retirees have, and the concerns that they may have?
Everyone's biggest concern is, what if I outlive my savings?
Yeah, that's a huge concern.
And it's funny, I've said it in podcasts before, I've yet to have a client outlive their savings. I've had a lot of clients die before they've spent a part of it. So, I mean, our concern from a realistic point of view is, what if you don't outlive your savings?
Yeah.
Is what generally happens. But still, you got to go and deal with that concern and make sure people are being responsible.
Yep. And I think one of the biggest concerns is you can plan as much as you can for your regular expenses, but those unexpected expenses, the big expenses that we're not planning for, could hurt your retirement.
Oh, we see tons of them. I mean, household expenses, things get very expensive. I've seen a lot of landscaping things. Landscaping is tremendously expensive. I've had people that have to build retaining walls, things like that, and all of a sudden be a $50,000, $60,000 expense out of nowhere that came in. And you can't not do it, right?
Right.
We've had different people in rural areas that have to hook up to, let's say, they now brought in sewers. They hook up to sewers.
Right.
Now it's going to cost you $30,000 to hook to a sewer.
Right.
They never plan on that, right?
Right.
And that's all of a sudden.
Yeah, those are those unique situations for the place that you live or the area that you live that may not be top of mind when you're walking through these plans for retirement income. And those aren't small expenses.
Yeah. Well, the big one now, too, is assessments on condos.
Right? Oh, yeah.
You know, that's been a big one of the year. We've had people get $10,000, $20,000 assessments where they think they have their condo fee, they have all their expenses, everything's all planned out, and all of a sudden something goes wrong with the condo, their reserve fund wasn't high enough,
Right.
and they're all of a sudden being assessed for $20,000 or $30,000.
Right.
We're watching it massively in the States, in the Florida area.
Right.
And
Yes.
we've had clients that have places down in Florida put in new rules because of that disastrous. There was a disaster down there a few years ago in the Miami area where a condo fell down and it killed many people and did a lot of damage. They've said now that all condos have to be brought up to a new standard.
Right.
But people are getting huge assessments in those properties.
Right. What are some other surprise costs that retirees could face that they may not plan for?
Healthcare.
Yep, that could be number one, likely. The number one, well, to be honest, it shouldn't be a surprise expense. I mean, we're all going to age, and that comes with, deteriorating health.
Yeah, I mean, the easy one to go into, that's dental.
Yeah.
I would love to get a cavity filled, but it's not cavities anymore. Every time, well, we're going to do a root canal and give you a crown. So those cavities seem like such a nice thing now.
Yeah.
And a root canal and a crown is what, $5,000 a tooth. So, we have people come in and getting 2 or 3 teeth done, and it's also a $15,000 bill that they never thought of, right?
Yeah, exactly. And either that's coming out of their portfolio, or unless they did some planning, perhaps for some private healthcare insurance to try to offset those costs a little bit.
Yeah.
But if you haven't done that planning, that's a big surprise expense.
Another question we get a lot is, should I adjust my investments as I age? And, that's always a tricky one because people tend to think they have a shorter time horizon than they do.
Yeah.
So they're always thinking, I'm 65. And from our point is we have a lot of clients in 95, so we're looking at a 30-year time horizon.
Exactly.
And they tend to look and figure, I'm retired now, I'm going to take all my money tomorrow.
Yes.
So, yes, you should, again, look at that, but it doesn't mean you have to become that conservative because you got to protect yourself against inflation.
That's it.
Inflation is the enemy of younger people.
For sure.
If you're 85 years old, inflation, it's not going to do that much damage. It's there, but it's not going to kill you.
Right.
If you're retired at 60 years old, inflation is deadly. And if you don't have a portfolio that's going to go and grow enough to take care of that inflationary cost, you're going to have a problem.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest misconception that I hear from clients or pre-retirees is that as they get closer to retirement, they are going to start reducing their equity exposure, getting more fixed income. But that's exactly the point. We're not planning to take all of your money out at retirement. The time horizon is life expectancy. So you need to, like you were saying, combat inflation by having equity exposure.
In some of the terms, when people say, well, I want to move to fixed income, I say, well, do you have fixed expenses?
Right.
Well, no.
Yeah,
my expenses are not fixed income. So I
Exactly.
don't know how people plan fixed income to take care of non-fixed expenses. So they have to match. Your expense is going to be inflationary. So you're going to need a part of your portfolio is going to have that inflationary component to it that's going to grow with the inflation rate rather than be fixed at a steady level.
No, for sure. Well, again, we are data guys. What does the data say?
Most Canadians underestimate their retirement expenses by 20 to 30%.
I believe it.
People think that they go to retire and all of a sudden everything's going to become cheaper.
Right.
Like there's some guy that's selling you cheap and say, oh, you're retiring now? I'm going to give you a break.
Exactly.
It doesn't work like that, right? You're still paying the same for your magazines. You're still eating the same amount of food. Many times people start to travel. The one great part about working is when I work, I can't spend money. You know, it's just you're working so you don't spend. I know on weekends, I spend a lot more money than I do during the weekdays,
100%,
right?
yes.
I work and I go home and I sit and I watch 2 TV shows and go to sleep. That's
Right,
it, right?
yes.
When I'm on a weekend, I'm out at Canadian Tire. I'm out at all the different stores. I'm at Home Depot. My wallet's going out and I'm spending everything I made during the week.
Exactly.
So once you hit retirement, the problem is you're in more of that spending mode because your time isn't taken by work.
Yep, no, for sure. Another thing that we've seen, and this was done by the OSC, the Ontario Securities Commission, put out a survey, and 50% of retirees feel unprepared for those surprise expenses. And so we talked about them earlier, whether it's a furnace or a condo reassessment or healthcare costs. Those are all things that should be thought about when you're making that cash flow plan.
Always build into when you're doing a retirement plan, put those unexpected expenses in there. You know, I always take 1 to 2% of your home's value and say, that's going to come up every year, and it may not come up this year, but next year it might be twice that.
Yeah, for sure.
So you need to go, and if you're living in a house that's $2 million, you better put at least $20,000 to $40,000 a year in maintenance costs.
Yeah, for sure. 10% of the value of your property should be set aside just for the upkeep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So usually about I find it's usually about 1% for upkeep, and then
1%.
Yeah. 10% would be
10%.
expensive.
Yeah, no.
I was thinking your house must need some work.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know what? There are tools out there that you can use to help prepare yourselves. You know, use those retirement calculators and planning tools to help make those projections, add in those surprise expenses so you can see what you need to be putting aside now to be able to accommodate those expenses. So what can our listeners do after hearing all of this?
I guess number one is talk to your financial advisors.
Yeah.
Have them go through your financial plan. Be realistic about the expenses you're going to put in those. There's great plan software. It can look at those CPP and OAS scenarios we talk about and see how it works out from a tax point of view, from a cash flow point of view for yourself. You can put some money aside for those unexpected costs. Have some money ready for that, so it's not a big surprise. If you're taking a bit more, you don't necessarily have to spend everything extra that's coming out. A little bit can go into a bit of a slush fund in there to take care of some of those expenses. And, you know, again, just keep on looking at your portfolio. As you start to, if your risk tolerance does start to change, as you get older, you need to take more income out of that portfolio. Yeah, you can look at doing a rebalance to your portfolio to get it online with what your needs are.
Absolutely. So I think what we take away from this is, you know, retirement planning is important. The plan that you make now isn't necessarily going to be written in stone. The plan is dynamic. Your life will change, but you have to be prepared for those unforeseen changes and put yourself in the best position to succeed.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to the end of another episode with Think Smart with TMFG. Thank you very much for listening.